Good morning, fellow supervisors. Call the meeting, the February 27th meeting of the Door County Board of Supervisors to order. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a number of supervisors that are absent today, but we'll do our roll call.
Roy's online, but is he joining digitally?
Roy's online. You have 17 present.
There's 17 members of the board that are present, 4 absent, and Supervisor Roy Engelbert is attending virtually. So that was part of my excuse for my delay here. I usually look at having people introduce resolutions, and I was going down to third on the list or so, trying to get it all lined up. So anyway, with that, we'll move forward. The presentation of the agenda. Okay. We need a motion to approve the agenda as presented. We will do a variation and allow for the special report to come up before our business. Could someone make a motion to approve the agenda, please? Okay, there was a motion by Norton and a second by Boltman. Any questions, concerns? Otherwise, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. Okay, correspondence. There was a letter included from Sheriff Tammy Sternard regarding the appointment of Kyle Vaser as the undersheriff, and he is also the new chief deputy. That's kind of old news, but we need to bring it forward. It is nothing that the board needs to approve. That's the sheriff's appointment, and it's within her responsibilities. Okay, public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make some public comment? Would you state your name and your address, please?
Actually,
and,
you want to come up in front? That sounds better.
Hello. Good morning, Supervisor Engelbert, members of the board, and fellow community members. My name is Holly Feldman, and I'm the Managing Director of Northern Sky Theater, and I also live at 1309 Utah Street in Sturgeon Bay. Today on your agenda, we are requesting a resolution from the board to provide Representative Joel Kitchens and Senator Andre Jacques with the endorsement that they are requesting to champion a bill that would grant property tax exemption for Northern Sky's Gould Theater and Creative Campus located at the corner of County Highways A and F in Fish Creek. And I wanted to leave you with a couple of bits of information. Some of this is in your packet, some of this might be new, and some of this the community might not be aware of. So property tax exemption, first off, is usual and customary for comparable nonprofit theaters. These exemptions were designed to specifically apply to organizations like Northern Sky. Another organization that takes advantage of this is Wisconsin's largest theater. That's the Milwaukee Repertory Theater down in Milwaukee. And of course, Door County's own Peninsula Players Theater, which is also in Fish Creek with us and is about the same size as us. And the reason these exemptions are written so specifically is so that they cannot apply to other organizations. And we believe that Northern Sky meets the criteria for such an exemption. Our work aligns with the educational and cultural enrichment objectives that are outlined in the state statutes governing nonprofit property tax exemptions. I wanted to leave you with 3 things that apply specifically to all of you and your constituents. What sets Northern Sky apart for the return on your investment? So first I want to talk about the economic value. In Door County, the nonprofit arts and culture industry generates $21.8 million in event-related spending by its audience. 70% of those dollars are spent by visitors to the county, providing vital income for local businesses. And Northern Sky, sometimes people assume that as a nonprofit, we don't pay taxes, but we do. We pay sales tax on all ticket sales, concessions, merchandise, ads, and sponsorships. And in 2023, those sales amounted to $57,000 in sales tax. Also, let's talk about a relationship with Door County's most popular state park, Peninsula State Park. We currently have a 15-year agreement with the park and the DNR that requires us to pay royalties to the state. We pay those on our ticket sales, concessions, and merchandise. And we're currently in year 6 to 10 of that arrangement. So our current range is 6% that we pay to the state. That amounts to about $35,000 last year. That goes up to 9% when we hit year 11. Additionally, any improvements that we make in the state park are gifted to the DNR, including all buildings and infrastructure. So just a few years ago, we built everyone's favorite building, which is our flush toilets that are now available instead of our old pit toilets. So that was $220,000 in capital investment to the state of Wisconsin. And we've been in that park for 50 years. And over all these years, we've donated nearly $2 million in capital improvements to the state of Wisconsin. So how does that apply to the locals and your constituents? Well, if 70% of arts and culture patrons are visitors, then 30% are local. And at Northern Sky specifically, all of our shows are written by us for our audiences. So we have written about cherry orchards, we've written about farmers, we've written about seafaring men on the Great Lakes. And in fact, just last year, we had not one, but 2 shows celebrating our Belgian heritage on our stage this summer. And who can forget Guys on Ice, which not only has played many times in Door County, but has traveled across the country, even in Texas, where they don't get ice very often, and has been taped by Wisconsin Public Television and is regularly aired on Wisconsin Public Television. Not only that, but we provide a free student ticket to every student in Door County. That's over 3,500 tickets. And as far as the investment of dollars go, I'll let Mr. Whipperfirth chime in a little later about what that means in dollars and cents to all of you. But ultimately, Northern Sky must pursue every opportunity to ensure our company's sustainability and to remain competitive in our market. As a nonprofit, every dollar that we generate is reinvested into our productions that make Northern Sky a cherished part of our vitality and identity here in Door County. We are not asking for special treatment. We are asking for fairness and recognition of the role Northern Sky plays in preserving and promoting Door County's cultural and economic vitality. We ask for your help in championing this cause through the legislative process. By endorsing this bill to move forward, you will be ensuring that our organization can thrive for generations to come. I welcome your questions and I appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to comment at this time? Okay, see no indication from the audience. Is there anyone online?
Yes, I'll go through those individuals online. So if you'd like to speak on Zoom, there's a way to raise your hand. If your hand is raised, I'll move you to the floor to speak. We ask that you give your name and number, and you also have 3 minutes to address the board. The first one that does have their hand raised is Robert. I will move you in. And Robert, if you unmute yourself, you have the floor and you have 3 minutes.
This is Christine Reed, 597 Sleepy Hollow Drive. A couple of points of follow-up from my correspondence that was included in the last meeting. Since the LCC meeting on February 13th released the draft of the Mill Pond Drawdown Report, I wanted to make a couple points, and I'm asking for the county board's help with this. Asking that you help us ensure that there is a full accounting of the sediment that transported out of the mill pond. I heard from Don Perrong, an environmental engineer who spoke to the county during the LCC meeting in 2019. He warned about sediment transport at that time. He has reviewed the draft report, and he has some input that he would like to include in that report. We talked to the fishermen. very soon there will be another spawning run on the river. And we got a lot of feedback from them. They're very unhappy with the sediment that went downstream. The report does not touch on that sufficiently. And so I'm asking that we get a more full accounting, because that was one of the goals of the drawdown. We know that the goal to control invasive aquatic plants failed, actually made the situation worse. It's important that the county board be involved in this because you vote on these issues. My second point is that in light of this report, we would like some kind of assurance from the county that this won't happen again. The fishermen that I spoke to were very upset. I said, I'm going to talk to the county board. What would you say? And this particular fisherman said, tell them I cried. Tell them I walked down the river to my favorite fishing hole, a deep hole in the Yanape River that was level with muck and mud, and I saw my tears falling on the water. Tell them I cried. So it's not just us. There's a tremendous impact downstream that is not being accounted for. The Lakeshore Natural Resources Partnership is doing an investigation downstream. We were told in one of the county board meetings that the EPA and the Corps of Engineers is looking
30
at
seconds.
the impact.
Christine.
So we would like that to be included. And Don Perong is available. He would like to have his input also. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is Jeff Herbst. Please, I'll move you, and if you could just unmute yourself, you have the floor.
Hi, thanks so much. My name is Jeff Herbst. I was artistic director of Northern Sky Theater for 32 years until the end of this past December. I have performed on the Peninsula State Park stage for over 40 years. And I echo what Holly Feldman, the managing director, had to say about this issue. I hope that everyone will give this serious consideration. Now that I'm retired from this position and looking at it from the outside, I think there's a lot of value in making sure that Northern Sky has a real shot at being able to sustain itself. And this would be a huge help. There's no question about it. It also, as Holly said, is just a matter of parity, equity. We obviously are in the same district as Peninsula players, and we understand that each of these is an individual case, and we hope that you will look at our case and understand how important of an issue this is to us. And I really appreciate being able to attend this meeting, by the way, so thank you for having this service available. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? For the second time, would anyone like to speak? If not, I will defer back to the chairman.
Okay, thank you for those that made their comments. We're going to close that public comment period. Are there any supervisors' responses to anything raised? Okay. Seeing no indication. We have the minutes of the January 28th, 2025 meeting included in the packet. Could we have, well, we do have a motion by Norton and a second by Voigt to approve those minutes. Any questions, corrections, anything else? Otherwise, all those in favor of approval signify by aye. Opposed? Okay, that motion passes by voice vote. The county administrator's monthly report on operations.
Yes, included in the package is the monthly report on the projects. Again, we're early in the year in terms of getting started, so nothing major to report at this point in time. But again, and then you also see on the second page, we're starting off with our new year as far as our gift grants and donations, along with our legislative issues. So at this point, I'll leave it at that point. Questions? Sean?
Okay, Sean.
Some operational matters that I want to bring to the board's attention regarding litigation that we were recently served with, as well as a record request from the state. Really nothing that requires board involvement, but I do want to give everyone an overview because I'm sure you'll hear about it going forward as these matters have statewide county implication. The first is a suit against all 72 counties in the state, the city of Milwaukee, and the state of Wisconsin regarding in-rem property tax foreclosures. The law for a long time has been that certain properties, when the county takes them for delinquent taxes, sells them, the proceeds of that sale in full are retained by the county. A few years ago, the Supreme Court of the United States had heard a case coming out of the state of Minnesota reviewing that practice and determined that it is an unconstitutional taking without just compensation to retain those proceeds. So counties were stuck in the position of they were following state law for years and years, and now because of the United States Supreme Court case, it's a practice that's been determined to be prohibited for a county to take. There was a group that filed a class action lawsuit against all counties, and we were served with that. Our insurance carrier, Wisconsin County Mutual, has retained WCA's counsel of Tollis Law to represent all Wisconsin County Mutual customers and to try to give some uniform defense to this litigation. It's very new. We were just served with it. There is some strategy being kicked around, but really nothing to report at this time. As there are things that I can report, I will keep this board informed of the progress. The second operational matter that came to light that is of statewide concern is the Wisconsin Assembly Committee on Governmental Operations, Accountability and Transparency, or the GOAT Committee, had sent a records request to, I believe, all counties in the state requesting information regarding DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives that the counties have taken, whether that be grants, policies, training programs, employment positions, and costs related to that. We were served a few days ago. I imagine at this point, all counties in the state have been served with that record request. We will respond to it according to law. The WCA has had conversation with that committee requesting some guidance on how do you want counties to respond to this? You want uniformity so that we're not getting 72 different interpretations of the same request. As of now, there hasn't been a whole lot of guidance other than we should interpret it as a public records request and respond accordingly. We will work on responding to that request. Just wanted to bring those two things up. Again, neither of them require county board action or input. Just want to keep everyone in the loop, and I'll continue to do so as we go forward.
Thank you, Sean. I guess I'd add a little bit to that. Not very much, but we were at, 4 of us, I believe, were at legislative days in Madison this last couple of days, and it was introduced by the WCA attorney there. And regarding the in-rem, he said there was a possibility. They were requesting going back to 1986 in-rems, but he was hopeful of something in the range of 3 to 6 years, maybe, if there was some sort of settlement. So just a little more insight there.
Yeah, the request does go back. I'll come up here, sorry. The request does go back a ways, but there are items called statute of limitations, which limits how far back you can look. That there is a duty on injured parties to bring cases forward timely, not sit on them for decades and then bring them forward. So that is a strategy or a defense that will be looked at, and that's what Chairman was referring to is, sure, you can request damages going back to the 80s, but whether that's equitable and allowed is another question.
Sure. Okay, and as to the actions of the GOAT committee, the committee was formed but hadn't formally met yet, I believe. That's what was reported to us. So the request came through the vice chair of the committee.
Yeah, the request did come from the chair. Whether the committee has met or what action they've taken, I don't know that.
They're waiting for, WCA is waiting for a direction, as you said.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Hang on a second. Okay, Vinny, please. Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped in. Jeff had asked first. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if Ken, could you give us an update on the signs, how the conversations are going with the municipalities and what's happening with?
Sure. So just for the reference for the full county board, we had that discussion with the finance committee in terms of finance and admin in terms of how we're proceeding with that project. And we had discussed reaching out to municipalities in terms of that, but we also wanted to do some research initially with some of the signs. So Sean and I have done that portion of it, but now we need to reach out to the town. So we're in that progress of doing that.
Thank you.
Okay, and then Vinny, please.
And we're for Sean. So the quick two of them that I missed which group you said made the open record request for the DEI open records. I just missed the committee or group you
Yeah,
said that.
so I have to get my notes because the acronyms get to me well. It's what is commonly referred to the GOAT, G-O-A-T committee. It's the Assembly Committee on Governmental Operations, Accountability, and Transparency.
Is that Wisconsin?
It's a Wisconsin committee. There was some push by the federal government for states to form these committees. I think this committee formed out of that request is my impression, but don't quote me on that. I'm
Sure.
I'm just not overly familiar with this committee and what their purview is.
And then the other one I have, and I don't know if you can answer this now or not, but the property tax foreclosure case.
Yep.
Is that so? Is the practice changed in the county since then, or is that part of what people are looking at doing, or what is the current practice? I guess if that is, was required by the state but not allowed now by the federal government, what are we doing as a county?
Yeah, the practice has changed. After that case, our legislature did do an update to the ordinance authorizing interim property tax foreclosures. So there is a new procedure that we've been following. I believe that went into effect to 2022, 2023. So now proceeds are being sent to the property owner. We are not retaining any proceeds other than what's authorized, being the delinquent taxes, costs, penalty, and interest.
That's everything before that. Yeah. That they're looking at. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Supervisor Anna.
All right, I'm gonna stay here.
Simple question.
Yeah.
Who formed the committee, the governor or the legislature?
It's an assembly committee, so I imagine it would be the legislature.
I believe it was the legislature.
Just informative.
Okay, and Supervisor Miller.
Yeah, thank you. Is it too early to determine what financial impact this could have? I don't think there can be that many that the county has had over the years, but is it too early to determine that?
I've inquired loosely into it. I don't believe most of our interim property tax actions are resolved through a process called redemption, where the property owner pays or the mortgage lender pays the taxes and pulls the property out of tax foreclosure. The amount of properties where we did retain surplus or donate to a municipality, there aren't that many. The numbers I don't know, but my impression is that worst case scenario, the amount the county would be ordered to repay would not be astronomical.
I would agree because, most of the time you get a foreclosure. This would not take a mortgage, which means that they have debt against it. So if they even have a 10% equity, that's probably going to be, and then of course you take the deduction and sale foreclosure. I don't think the impact would be that significant.
Yeah, that's my impression too, that it would be substantial, but it's not going to shock the conscience.
Okay. I don't believe there are any other questions. So we'll, pending business, I have nothing in that regard. If anyone else does. Okay, the resolutions, 2025-13. Oops, I'm sorry. Yes, we're supposed to do special reports. Wayne, would you introduce the Friends of the Park System?
Do you have the PowerPoint?
Oh, dear.
Come on. We talked about this many times.
Well, you didn't remind me.
This report was presented
Thanks,
at
sir.
the Facility and Parks Committee at their last meeting, and I asked that it come here so that all the supervisors would be aware of what this organization has done for the parks.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Chairman, to invite us to really celebrate our Friends Group and what they've done over the past few years. So I had an opportunity this last June to nominate them for the State Partnership Award. So that's an award that's issued by the Wisconsin Parks Association, which is the state association. It's the highest award available, and some of that language is in your packet. I think I put the nomination in the packet, but we have a separate slideshow and some press release information that kind of goes along with it, but not really, because I don't really like to read slides. So just to move forward and keep it going, the Friends of Door County Park were awarded the Wisconsin Park and Recreation Partnership Award, the state association's highest award given to the community organization in recognition for their outstanding work and service in promoting and providing quality recreational and/or park opportunities for the residents of the community and beyond. So we are on number 2 now? Awesome. Founded in 2007 by former Parks Director George Penny, the organization has been uplifting parks and providing them with the resources possible to continue the maintenance of happy, healthy parks. Slide number 3. The Friends Group has improved the Door County community in more ways than one. They raised over $404,000 in cash to protect and preserve the parklands. In addition, parks have been added to Door County, including a wildlife preserve, the Anape State Trail Door County segment, and its extensions, totaling park maintained properties to 21 to date. The Friends Group spirited over $2.4 million in program and project value in this effort. This went directly towards the acquisitions, development, and preservation of land in the Door County parks. In addition to the financial aid the Friends Group has generously gifted Door County parks, it wouldn't be where it is without the support of our volunteers. And so today we have Dale Wiegand, who's a former president of the board. As the chairman said, we had quite a few members at our home committee meeting, but most of them are either out of state or out of the country to get rid of our Wisconsin weather and those blues. And Dale actually flew back from Thailand just recently to be with us, so we're grateful, sir.
Yeah, of course. Glad to be back.
The Friends Group is a substantial ambassador to the Horseshoe Bay Cave at Frank Murphy Park. The group annually volunteers an estimated 214 hours, hosting elementary school and public cave tours. They are the primary support system for cave and contacts during our public events. Conservation efforts support the University of Virginia and Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources hibernaculum research studies during annual visits to the cave. And so this was a big piece of that award. Is it has to be bigger than your own local region, right? It needs to have a state impact or a national impact as to how these partnerships really evolve and develop. And that was a really big, a key part of that award. The partnership of Door County and the Friends Groups have catapulted various initiatives. This includes the documentation of the history of each park, paying respect to the people who perished at Tornado Memorial Park, and the development of an accessibility trail at Allison Bay Park. Due to the altruistic efforts of the Friends of the Door County Park System, they were selected to receive this year's WPRA Partnership Award. As I had said earlier, this is the highest award bestowed by the Park and Rec Association to a private or nonprofit agency or organization in recognition of their outstanding contributions to parks and recreation in Wisconsin. So thank you. You want to say anything? You don't want to talk about my great leadership?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Yeah, please do.
Yeah, I really want to thank Wayne for putting this award forward. We had no idea this was going to happen. It's kind of a surprise on us, but a little about the Friends Group. It's a lot of fun. We do a lot of things in the park. And I tell you, I think Door County's got the best county parks. That's so versatile. And Joel, we even got one in Washington Island. I hope you've been there. No, no, no. But yeah, it's a lot of involvement, a lot of volunteer work, and we have a lot of fun while we're doing it. It's a great part, and we're happy to be involved in it.
Dale, I'd have a question for you.
Yes,
How does
Dave.
the Friends Group go about raising all this money?
A lot of it's through the triathlon. When they started the triathlon, and they used Murphy Park, and that's one of the reasons why it really started. I was on the county board at the time on the Parks Committee, and I don't know if Ken, you were on there at that time. And then he said, well, why don't we start a nonprofit organization so that they can donate money to that group from the triathlon, and then we can give it back to the county. And that's kind of how it started. At the first couple of years, it was a lot of money, but now they donate money to a lot more nonprofit organizations. But we still get a lot. The Fall 50, we've got all around all the not all the parks, a few of the parks right now, we've got money tubes that people can put money in. We get donations through the mail. We got the word out there in the parks pamphlet, the new ones especially that revamped it. There's a way to donate money that we get and give directly to the park. So,
Okay.
and sometimes we give our own cash.
Oh.
No. Thanks for that question.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. And you'll see the impact. I think it's in your packet of all of the projects listed and the piece that the Friends Group had involved in, right? So a lot of times these projects, they evolve and they're, these brainchilds of either the committee or myself or other directors or just citizens that come forward and say, hey, why can't we do this? And then we figure out a reason why we can and then move it forward. So a lot of times the Friends Group is really that catalyst that gets us over the edge. They finish that funding piece, right? So I go out and seek other grants, and we've seen that in recent years with the playgrounds, the shoreline restoration at LaSalle, is all over the place. I mean, there's a lot of them in there, and they're all listed. They're really the ones that come through in the end. So they'll commit a certain dollar amount, but we don't always use that much. Honestly, we find grants, and then we can pull their contribution back, and then keep moving that forward to the next project. So without their help, a lot of things we probably wouldn't be able to accomplish, right? Or we'd be asking for tax levy dollars and competing with the sheriff's department or human service, right? We don't want to compete there, right? We want to make things better through another way. So appreciate, yeah.
One of my favorite projects that we do, one of the parks that we do is years ago when we first formed the group, there was a supervisor that said, you should get rid of Sugar Creek. That park is going downhill. Nobody's going to use it anymore. They can't use it as a boat launch. We started putting a lot of money in that, starting with the Frisbee golf course. And then that bridge that was built that we had to do to proper specs, we thought you can put a bridge across the creek and we're done. Well, that turned into a heavy duty project because the regulations that the DNR needed to get the grant for that. But we're doing a lot more Sugar Creek right now. Just recently, it's a good park. If you've ever haven't been down there, go down there. Because that's really a showcase of what we can do as a Friends Group.
Very good.
Yeah. I've seen the work at Sugar Creek. It is very, very nice. But along the same line, I think as the county has projects coming up that are sometimes difficult for us to cost out, an organization like this is really helpful. And maybe we can set this as an example for other projects. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll leave it there.
Okay, then we'll move on to resolutions. Resolution 2025-13. Supervisor Miller, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to bring forward a motion to approve resolution number 2025-13, memoriam of Gerald Wagner, and I'll read that memoriam to the Door County Board of Supervisors. Whereas Gerald Wagner passed away on February 6, 2025, and whereas Supervisor Wagner was appointed to the County Board of Supervisors on April 1983 and served until April 1984. Whereas Supervisor Wagner represented Supervisory Districts 1, encompassing the towns of Union, Brussels, and Ward 1 of Forestville Town, and whereas during his tenure, Supervisor Wagner served on several committees and boards, including Airport and Parks, Agriculture and Extension Education, and a member of the Veterans Service Commission. Now therefore be resolved that the Door County Board of Supervisors assembled in regular session this 27th day of February 2025 extend our sincere sympathy to the family of Gerald Wagner with this acknowledgement of his dedication and service to the citizens of the County of Door, and I would make a motion to approve this resolution.
Okay, there was a motion by Supervisor Miller, a second by Supervisor Voigt. All those in approval signify by aye.
Aye.
Okay. Resolution 2025-14, the ADRC modernization grants. Supervisor Norton, please.
Morning. I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 2025-14, approval for the ADR modernization project grant. Cliff notes on it is that the state decided to redesign the logo for all ADRCs across the state, so all the counties that have one. Originally, what the state was going to offer every county was $10,000, no matter how big the county was or how small. Then after that, they requested that every county submit how much they actually needed to rebrand everything. This was the amount that Door County came up with, the $36,080. So then the counties all had a choice. They could take nothing and it would all come out of the county pocket. They could take the original 10,000 offered, or they could take what was allowed in the grant. The concern is, now the question is, the rebranding of the logo is very, very close to what we currently have. Now the concern is, if we don't accept the grant, we would have to pay for it out of our pocket because they want it all streamlined, the 36,000, or it could impact future funding to the ADRC. I get that having very close to the same logo that we currently have without a huge amount of change. The blue is a slightly different color, and the what's the word I'm thinking? The print is slightly different of a design. It's very, 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 very close to what we currently have. That the ADRC committee and the Health and Human Services committee kind of went, wow, that's what we're spending our money on. But at the same time, if we don't accept it, we will have to end up paying out the money anyway. And it could affect possible future funding. If anyone has questions too, I'll try to answer what I can.
Okay. Any questions from anyone? Okay, thank you for the explanation.
Yep.
So, I'm sorry. Okay, Supervisor Anigal.
Lovely way to see our legislature help us save money.
Mm-hmm. And
I don't disagree with any of it. I'm on both committees, and both committees kind of went, why?
okay, Supervisor Shaw. No question? Oh, you were seconding the motion. Okay, very good. Okay, is there any questions of anyone regarding that resolution? Otherwise, we have the motion by Norton, second by Shaw, to approve the resolution 2025-14. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. Resolution 2025-15. Financial assistance at Shidware's Dock. Bud, would you be willing to introduce that, please? Could you introduce it for us?
Resolution 25-15 is to authorize application for and acceptance of financial assistance for Shidware's Dock dredging.
Okay. Any questions in that regard? What's happening at Shidware's Dock? Or Wayne, you can give us an update on?
Actually, I wouldn't normally just jump right up and give you extra information, but what's in your packet is going to change fairly significantly in the narrative and feasibility statements. So the new wrecked boat facility guide was just published. It's a December 2024 guidance. So the things that you see in there only talk about dredging and dredging alone. However, dredging and dredging alone is not an approved activity for the grant, unless you have construction activities as well. So the new feasibility statement has included the upper parking lot, which is 16 stalls, updated lighting, updated signs, and there's one other piece. So those are approved construction activities to apply for the grant. So that the resolution's not going to change, the dollars and the anticipated dollars won't change because our estimates had some built-in contingencies. So these other pieces that I have to develop and figure out, and the construction piece really is some quotes from Highway, right? So we'd have them do that upper 16 stalls. The lighting we're going to do in-house. Really, it's just buying the LED lights. So they're almost de minimis in cost. But I think it's important to know the activities that are going to go on there in order to have successfully put forward a grant that we're most likely to get instead of just kick back to us. The conditions down there, just so you know, I went down and I drilled some holes through the ice. So between the mouth there, I didn't find water until I got to the mud, which was 18 inches of ice. So the conditions are terrible. You're going to hear from your constituents. You probably heard from them last fall. And I'm already getting calls, this spring, because water levels are anticipated to be down another 12 inches from the Army Corps of Engineer estimates. So I think it's just important for all the board members to know that we are working on this as fast as we can. We can't apply for the grant until June 1st. And then those awards are not until August. So I wouldn't anticipate anything happening over the summer to improve the conditions of the harbor and the channel and getting in and out of there.
Yeah.
So I think that just needs to be transparent for everyone in how we try to manage those expectations.
Okay, thank you for that info. I
Yes.
also ask you to comment. I know that's one of the most utilized
Yeah, so
harbors.
yeah, so that's in here. It's actually our second most used in Southern Door. So it's the third, right, overall in the county. Carmody, I think we had, and I was just doing these numbers, about 7,000 daily purchases last year. And so here it was right around 1,800 at Carmody, and then Penny was in the 2,500 range of daily purchases. So.
Okay, any questions of Wayne or? Okay, Supervisor Boltman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So can you repeat or help understanding? And so you got this process going, but now there's new guidelines that kind of amend what we have to do. So you're saying we have to do other things in addition to dredging?
Correct.
Okay, and can you review that again? What are those additional things?
The things we're going to do. So we'll do a reconstruction of the upper parking lot.
What does that mean?
We will remove the asphalt and put new in. So that parking lot is actually, and Tim knows the words better than I, it's a water infiltration system that does some things before it goes back into the bay to help alleviate those environmental concerns and runoff, right? So there isn't a stormwater pond per se, but there are some underground filtration systems there. So that parking lot has been in disrepair for quite some time. It needs to be striped and fixed. We fixed the lower 2 years ago through some other grants and repaved that one. So this upper would be part of that project. Signage is eligible grant items, and then security lighting and safety lighting.
Are there lights there now?
There are.
Okay, and we're operating under a dark sky compliant lighting regime, I'm assuming?
I can't really, I'm not sure. On the ones that are there now, I'm not sure, Supervisor Boltman. I'm not sure if those are, I can't remember if those are HID, the round things you'd see, on a typical street light, or if they are downward light. But yes, that's what we designed to in all of our parks. It would be, so we'll work with a lighting engineer to have downward LED lights. Yes.
Yeah, as long as and obviously whatever we do, whatever happened in the past, happened in the past, but we have to be dark sky compliant. I also wonder about is there, because the challenge with this dark sky thing, we all think, oh, we just aim the lights down and we're fine. Well, we aim lights down, they bounce off the pavement and still obscure the night sky. So it's really a matter of like total output. So is there some, when the DNR is saying, oh, you got to do new lights, I mean, are they requiring a certain amount of wattage or a certain amount of lights, or, I mean,
So that's not specified within, it just says construction projects and lighting is a qualified construction project.
okay,
So they don't review what we put in, right? There's not a state stamp or review, or, it's not a permitted item. But yes, there are reflective qualities, and this is about the water, right? So there's reflection just as much as pavement on the water. And it's really more about safety in the harbor, and coming into the harbor and then launching and not falling in. So we do have some lights that are within the harbor itself, and they're low. They're not even on poles. They're down really close to the water. And some of those are in disrepair and haven't worked for years. So those are also pieces we'll try to address in this project.
okay. I mean, again, just as long as we're not, and it happens. I mean, you see, we've done it in Bailey's Harbor. For some reason, people get the idea that we need lights, and we put all these lights up, and then they're generally not used, and they're just on all the time, obscuring the night sky. So I hope we're being minimal with the lights we're putting in. I mean, I understand safety, but like I said, there's been projects where it's like, they're on at 11 o'clock at night or whatever, midnight. It's like, and it just doesn't seem, I mean, are these on all 24 hours a day?
No.
Yeah, good,
These
okay.
are definitely daylight controlled, and I believe there's 3 that are on the face of the harbor where the field dock is. And so we lease that space to another entity that leases it. So we kind of have a duty to keep it in good repair, right? And keep those lights working. The important lights are really the nav lights, right? The 2 beacons that come in, they're private aids. And we have replaced and fixed those. I think we put new ones on there last year.
Yeah.
So like those are the key ones, and the other ones really are about safety for.
Yeah, as long as we're not just illuminating the whole parking lot for no reason.
Yes,
That's
sir.
that's what I'm getting at.
No.
And then, I mean, do we have a sense, I mean, obviously this is an incredibly expensive project.
Yes.
I mean, $500,000 it's really insane to consider that that's what we have to do. I question, I mean, I question not you, but I question the companies that are telling you that that's what it's going to cost, because I think they're milking us. And I know our hands are a little tied, but $500,000 is ludicrous. So I'm curious, like, what do we take in? Like, how much income does this bring the county every year? What's the income on people paying their launch fees, and what income does this facility bring to the county every year?
We can get back to you with that for
I think
that
that's
specific
important.
facility. So we have those records.
I think
Yes.
that's important. I mean, we have this facility, and yeah, we're investing in it, but like, we should also know how much money that makes us, so we can actually do a bit of an analysis about like,
Yeah.
where,
No, I appreciate that. I think the broader impact, and it's part of the feasibility statement, is the overall economic impact on the region.
Sure.
Right. So what are fishermen or rec boats, not necessarily fishermen, right? Rec boating in generally, what does that bring for economic impact to the region?
Yeah.
Right. And so when we talk about the region, and in the grant, the region is considered any body of water that's over 1,000 acres, right? So the Bay of Green Bay is our region here, right? So we're talking about boats that are coming over from Ocano or up from Green Bay, and it's a harbor of safe refuge for rec boats and small boats, not commercial, but definitely for rec boats. So it meets a lot of criteria in our 7.088 is it's very specific in there of the criteria that we meet for this. And so those economic impacts are far more than our $7 daily launch.
but again, I think
Yeah.
it's worth comparing, like, and because it gets to like, well, who sets that launch fee? Do we, or do the state set the launch fee?
We do.
Yeah.
But it's based on what the state will let us set. So
Sure.
we have to be below the state's fees, and our annual fees also have to be below the state fees in order to compete for the grant. So if we had a $15 launch fee, we wouldn't even be able to put in a grant for this.
Right. See, and I think these are all good things for us to understand. And really what I'm getting at is like numbers, because it's like, if we know how many people are using it and we see, and okay, so it's a $7 launch fee, and we realize that that's, I mean, it's almost like a subsidized thing or whatever. Like we're not going to charge $15 to launch. I wouldn't support that. But then we know how many people are using that, and that helps us then calculate that economic impact on like, what's the average rec boater or fisherman, spending in the community on fuel and on bait and on fish and on restaurants and lodging and all that kind of thing.
I think the other important piece of information that you might not, because you're not part of the committee. So this is an 80-20 grant, based on NR 7088, up to 80%. So if the Wisconsin Waterways Commission decides they want to give us 80, and we've received 80 on many others that have to do with rec boating, right? So it's only 20% then is the burden of the county. That 20% comes from boat launch funds, and it's in that fiscal impact statement that's off to the side there. Our boat launch fund, I think, is north of $500,000 somewhere, and we average about 100,000 a year. So it's not tax levy dollars. I think that's important for the public to know and for you to know. So we're not asking for a capital improvement project with tax levy dollars, right? We're utilizing the boat launch fund as it was set up and directed to be used to pay for the grant matches on these pieces. And there's actually a second grant that I'd rather not discuss that I'm going to reach out and try to get for this, so we don't use as much boat launch funds, but it's highly competitive, and if other people don't know, it's good.
The
This is
board,
my selfishness.
Yeah.
the board needs to realize how some of these protective harbors came into place. It was the DNR that wanted to have these harbors every so many miles or however along the Bay of Green Bay, and I think this goes back
Yeah.
to the 1990s or so.
It does. It goes back quite a ways. So the narrative is still very clear. I guess one other piece, gosh, and I just lost that because it was actually pretty important. 10 years. We only can apply for this grant every 10 years, right? So we had to wait for that threshold, and our last one was 2012. That process took 3 years to get the grant through. I started in August, and I think I got it on a fast track, believe it or not. And we're beyond that 10 years, so we're eligible by that as well. Otherwise, we'd be on the hook for 100% of the cost ourselves. We can't even apply for that grant if it's within a 10-year period.
Well, and let's hope the water doesn't go down too far. The other thing is, I mean, as far as numbers and like who uses it, it's like, it would be interesting and potentially useful to know, like, has the low water been hindering people's use? And,
Absolutely.
so I think, I mean, what I'm getting at is like, those are, I think, valuable numbers for us to understand. Like, yeah, this dredging is important because beforehand we had X number of uses, and now with the dredging making it more functional, it's 3 times X or 10 times X or whatever.
How did I guess the questions you're going to ask? So over the last 3 years, we're down 18%.
Okay.
The usage is down 18%. Those are true hard numbers. And those aren't the people that bought an annual pass and they go. It's the stuff that we can track on a daily paid scale, right? So we can only track what's paid daily through the kiosk or envelopes that we receive. I can't track the things that aren't associated with a payment. So those 18% is your number.
Okay, Joel, did you have a question as well?
But information on this, I'm just curious, what's the total cubic yards that's going to be anticipated to be pulled out of there? I couldn't see it unless I just didn't see it.
I didn't have those calculations until I did my through ice initial survey.
It's got to be significant because in response to Mr. Boltman's comment about the funding, I'm shocked that it's as low as it is, in honesty.
It's north of 10,000. So the one section directly, I looked at it this morning, was right around 10,000 is the estimate. So that's the main channel all the way out. Yeah. But then we have 3 other sections within the harbor that we look at. And really it depends upon what the engineer comes up with to take those out. So we have some slope angles we're dealing with, right? We don't want to decrease the stabilities of our seawalls, exactly. Right? So we have a lot of engineering we have to work with and make sure we're very specific as to what we do, because they did go in quite a few years ago and they dug it all out, and then the seawall went away, and then we had another construction project on our hands. Some may remember that.
Right.
And it was a pretty big deal.
I'm assuming you've already contacted certain engineers or companies to give you some cost analysis on this.
So AECom is our engineer that worked with us 14 years ago. That's the agreement we're working on right now. I talked to Sean, and we're trying to finalize our agreement. So those numbers are pretty hard and not to exceed value in our engineering costs. And it came actually 4,000 under what's in your packet. So actually estimated that one pretty good. So good. No, yeah, very good question. So we don't need the engineered plan to go out for the grant or the permit, but it's in the county's best interest to have the engineered plan to do the bidding and make sure the contractor does what we require them to do.
Last question regarding the cubic yardage. What's the targeted depth then to have for that channel and the harbor when it's all said and done?
-8 from low water mean data.
-8 from low water data. Okay.
Yes, and that's the history. In 2014, we went to -8.
Because right now we're, as you probably are aware, we're within 5 inches of the record low.
Right, we'll probably be below low water mean
Yeah.
this summer. And for those that don't, Joel and I speak nautical, so that's really an average of the low water on the lakes over a certain period of time determined by the Army Corps of Engineers and NOAA. So we use these benchmarks, and we have benchmarks right there on site. There's a benchmark with the elevation, and then we try to get to -8. So even though we might go to what you think is -8, we might only have 4 feet of water still until the water comes back up. But we can only go so deep because of the hard pan and the engineering controls that we have on the seawalls.
Okay, Supervisor Schulman.
Thank you. This goes right with that too. Thank you so much for this report. But how, like, if you're saying if constituents are concerned, does this, and this is really layman's terms, does this mean that boats cannot get in there this season because their dredging is needed, or certain size boats can't? And then if it takes 2 to 3 years for the grant, is that 2 to 3 years of it filling in, and not being able to use the dock, or is the dock usable now?
So I'll try to
don't know
answer
any of
all the
that
questions.
from what you're saying. Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
last time, it was 3 years was the process.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's not happening right now.
Yeah.
Right now, I think we're within like 6 or 7 months on this
Okay.
process, right? Can boats get in there? Minimally drafted boats, yes. So when I talk about, so you look around and you see these 21 and 22 foot, maybe outboards with 400 horse motors, they run aground. Every time they run through, they got to push it through the sand, and so they may damage their vessels. We do have a couple of bigger vessels that lease space in there with Shooters Dock LLC, and so they can't put their boat in there and come and go as they needed to. So it kind of becomes a matter of safety. So a mid-size wreck boat, something maybe 22 to 35 feet, right, will not be able to seek safe harbor there. If they do, they probably won't know how shallow it really is, and they'll be aground in the middle, right, to cause more issues. And so, yes, we aren't getting nearly as many boats or users, and that's why we're down that 18%. And really, all I can tell people is, I'm sorry, if you think you're going to run aground, go to Carmody or go to Bay Shore, Brown County.
And that makes me just wonder if it was a DNR safe harbor designation in the 90s or whenever that happened, as you referred to, so they don't guarantee that they'll help with any funding to keep it dredged to stay a safe harbor for X number of size of boat. That's hard calculation, but
Yeah, there's never any guarantees, but it's in their legislative language that is one of their criteria, and we meet it. So
yeah,
that's good for us.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how it works for the boaters, but the road I live on handles a lot of the traffic that goes to Shidware's Dock. And there are some beautiful boats and trucks that go by, especially when the fishing derbies are happening. It's very active.
It's a dynamic issue for sure.
Yeah.
But thank you for the questions. Those are awesome.
Okay,
Good.
we'll move on. We have the motion by Combs and a second by Fisher to approve resolution 2025-15. All of those in favor signify by aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, thank you, Roy. Okay. Resolution 2025-16. Joel, would you present that, please?
Sir, good morning. Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2025-16, which is a resolution urging the Governor Evers and the Wisconsin legislature to support the county courts. I think the very first whereas sums it up, but if there's any further questions, I know Connie is here and she could probably provide way better information than I can.
Connie, would you like to make some comments to it, or? This is also a topic at the conference. The governor would like to see a lot of the costs of the courts taken over by the state, or a bigger share.
The circuit courts, along with the Wisconsin Counties Association, is asking for this increase in funds. Right now, it's about an 80-20. So obviously the courts are mandated procedures, and the county is paying about 80% of those funds. and the state's covering 20%. So that's the main goal here, is we're trying to get it to be more like a partnership and share those expenses. As I said, all of our procedures are mandated, so.
Okay, does anyone have any questions of Connie? Okay. Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just to add, at WCA, when they went through the legislative issues for the Wisconsin Counties Association, this was definitely one of the ones that they highlighted as like, we're trying to make this happen. So
Mhm.
says broad support.
Okay. Vinnie?
Just add to that from WCA too, that the support for that also, I really appreciated a couple of the other county administrators and county board chair people who were talking about that, just mentioning how so much funding has to be diverted in the county from proactive and preventative things that are going to the court systems instead, and then the extreme cost of that on the back end instead of being proactive or having the funds available if we had more of a partnership with the state. So I definitely support it.
Mhm. That does seem to be a continuous topic that we're referred to, counties are referred to as the arm of the state, but the state doesn't take their share. Okay, Supervisor Norton.
Thank you. Yeah, I support this too. My only question is, have any of the other counties already passed this, or are they all kind of looking at this month and next month, or like, are we kind of in line with what everyone's doing, you know?
I can answer that. So right now, obviously from the legislative days, they presented that platform. So now they're asking all the counties now to start passing resolutions. So we're all part of the process right
So
now.
everyone's kind of doing it probably about now, and we're
Yep.
doing it, or possibly next month.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Mhm. Okay. So we have the motion by Gunlickson and second by Voigt. All those in favor of approving resolution 2025-16 indicate by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Okay, resolution 2025-17. Vinnie, would you introduce that, please?
Sure. I'd like to call for 2025-17 support of increasing base funding for county conservation staffing to 20.2 million. And I think Greg was going to present some information on that, right? From our county conservationist.
Mhm.
Good morning, everyone. So in your packet, pages 25 through 31 is this topic for the county conservation funding. 25 and 26 is the resolution. And if you look at pages 30 and 31, that is our state association, Wisconsin Land and Water State Association, Conservation Association. This is the top priority for this budget cycle again. It's been a top priority for several years. There's been a gap from the base funding to what's needed for funding for county conservation. And currently that gap is about 11.2 million. We're looking to increase the base funding. And if you've seen the governor's budget, there's some funding there, like I think to the tune of 6.1 and 6.6 million for the 2 years. So that's roughly about a little over half of what's needed. If you look at, let's see, my memo, the impact to the county is that if we were to get full funding from DATCAP, the DNR DATCAP application, we would be getting $428,000+ from them. So to fill the gap, the county is, at least in the 25 budget, is 244,000 some change. But this gap has been there for years, as you can see on that chart. We fill out an application every year for funding, so we just finished the one for 26. Problem with the application too is that there's a 2-year lag. So we're using 24 salaries to figure out 26 funding. And on page 29, if you look, Door County is highlighted. We got 183,000 and some change from DATCAP for this year. 100% of the funding was provided for the first position, 80% of the 70% for the second position, and then there were no awards for the 50% for the entire state. So this gap has been there for many years. I know this is going to be a topic next week at our conference. Addressing one of the questions that was brought up for the last resolution. We're probably ahead of the game on this one. The other counties will be doing this probably next month.
Okay. Vinnie?
Thanks for talking a lot today. I just wanted to say thank you to current county leadership, past county leadership for supporting the Land Conservation Department in making up for this gap. I think it's really important. And we hear from our constituents in all kinds of surveys that water quality is a main concern, main issue. And so I'm thankful that we do make up the gap, and I hope the state will do their part more in meeting these funding needs.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have the motion by Supervisor Shomo, second by Supervisor Zettel. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that carries as well. Okay, resolution 2025-18. Supervisor Gauger, would you introduce that, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would like to make motion for the approval of a donation to the Door County Transportation Department. This is the city of Sturgeon Bay has offered $16,000 donation to Door County Transportation Department to support the 2024 expenses for the public transportation provided through door-to-door rides and Door County Connect. I would make the motion to accept this donation. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any questions for anyone? That actually came through the administrative committee. And okay, we're looking for approval. We have the motion by Gauger and a second by Boltman to approve this resolution. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carries. Resolution 2025-19. Nissa, would you present that, please?
I'll make the motion to approve resolution number 2025-19, intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Egg Harbor, Branch Library, and us. For those that haven't seen these before, they come up periodically, just saying that we're still working with the town where that library is, and that we agree to cost share and stuff like that.
Sean? Sean presented it at the administrative committee, and I believe a 5-year agreement.
Yeah, the Egg Harbor Library branch of the Door County Library is located in the Crest Center where we had our budget retreat. The intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Egg Harbor and the county expired. This is renewing that. And in very simplistic terms, the Village of Egg Harbor maintains the building, the maintenance around the building, and we maintain the library and staffing. It's very similar to the last agreement that recently expired, with some very minor changes regarding notifying of events and how far in advance you do that, and then use of furniture in the building. But otherwise, it's just the general agreement that we have with them on how we're going to share in the cost of operating the library, that branch.
Okay. I don't believe we have any questions. We have the motion by Supervisor Norton and a second by Supervisor Enigal to approve the agreement with the Egg Harbor branch. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Okay. Resolution 2025-20, Supervisor Enigal.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve resolution 2025-20, approval of agreement for 5-year Insight contract. If there's any questions, the tech department is here.
Any questions? Jason Rauer, the head of IT, is here. Want to make a brief comment to it, Jason, or? Sure.
So the first part was to co-term them. Essentially, it provides our internet feed and our phone service. We wanted them to co-term so they'd be together in contract. And then the second part of it is while they were going through that, we went and revised the numbers, and we're actually saving $275 a month on the internet feed, and roughly, I shouldn't say roughly, and $100 a month for the phone service. So to me, it makes a lot of sense to lock in at the better rates and to co-term them.
Okay. Supervisor Zell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With more and more infrastructure going in the county for broadband, there's other transport players that are going to be available, whether it's Frontier, AT&T, Bertram, et cetera. Do we anticipate that we'll be able to look at, competitive contracting after this next 5-year term that can help us for things like lower transport fees, for example?
So we don't use Nsight. One of the advantages of Nsight is this is a direct link. So it's not like a internet feed, like a standard internet feed where like you'd get one at your home or even a standard business class one. We have one that actually is almost like a dark fiber or a dark transport that takes us from our organization at the government center to the WISNET point of presence at the UWGB campus. They're one of the only players in the game besides Charter that have that type of connection, and Charter has been more expensive to operate than the other players.
Okay, any questions of Jason? Okay, thank you, Jason. Okay, so we have the motion by Supervisor Enikel, second by Supervisor Norton. All in favor of approving the resolution signify by aye. Opposed? Carries by voice vote. Okay, resolution 2025-21, Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to bring forward a motion to approve resolution number 2025-21 in support of Assembly Bill for Northern Sky Theater property tax exemption, and I would move to approve the resolution.
Okay. Supervisor Shaw.
Yes, I just wanted to speak on behalf of constituents that had reached out to me, Ms. Feldman being among them. I think one of the big things that we need to look at when we're looking to this is the equity question of this. There is already precedent that this is happening at another large organization that is presenting a similar kind of product. And I think it's important that we look at sustainability for this group and the stewardship that Northern Sky Theater has done outside of our county. Ms. Feldman alluded to the Milwaukee rep. Northern Sky Theater has had performances and taken original works that are from Door County, and they are reaching out beyond our county. And I think it's really important that we continue to support the arts in this community.
Okay. You want to give us some insight on the tax dollars?
Yeah, when I was talking with Ms. Feldman, and we're getting questions or trying to figure out what is going to be the impact to the taxpayers. And so what I did is I worked with Ms. Feldman and also the Town of Gibraltar treasurer, and we came up with some numbers of what is going to be the impact to the taxpayers. So just so that what everybody understands is that what takes place is that when the property value of Northern Sky would fall off the tax roll, and then what happens then is everything else, that portion would get redistributed to all the rest of the all the taxable property. So when working with the Town of Gibraltar treasurer, I came up with some numbers as to what is going to be the fiscal impact for the Town of Gibraltar residents on their tax bill. So right now, by removing Northern Sky, the impact the mill rate would increase by 0.0089. So roughly not even about 1 penny. So what does that mean? So if you have a property value in the Town of Gibraltar, say $350,000, your taxes would go up about $3.15 in the Town of Gibraltar. Now, if you're looking on the county side, now that's just a town, that doesn't include the school and NWTC, that's a town. On the county side, doing the calculation on that, the increase to the mill rate per thousand is 0.0008, so not even 0.5%. So on the same, for the county, if same $350,000 property value, your taxes would go up 28 cents. So that's what we did and came up with the calculation. Now, one of the things I would like to clarify that I think it's in your packet, I believe it's on page 49. There was a article, the January 9th of 2025 from Pulse. And they added in there, it's towards the bottom, they estimated $3.19 per $100,000 property value. I just want to clarify that, that the numbers I just gave you would be based off of $350,000 property. So there's some just miscommunication, and so I just want to get clarified that what if there's people that saw the the article, just to clarify that number. So.
Okay. Any questions from any? Well, Roy is online, and Roy, would you go ahead, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little confused this morning on resolution number 2025-21, line 5. It says that we have a total of seating capacity of at least 800 persons. And then on page 47, it says seating capacity of not less than 400. Which is the right number for the statute as it is right today?
I think Sean may have some insight there.
Yeah. So the 800 person capacity is the capacity in the law as it stands today. This bill is requesting to amend the statute to reduce that amount. So if this assembly bill would pass, the statute would be amended to include theaters with the capacity of at least 240 persons. So they're not apples to apples. We're comparing the existing law to the requested change to the law.
It didn't answer my question. On page 47, it says not less than 400. There's two different numbers here that we're looking at, 800 and 400. What is the law right now? Is it 800 or is it 400?
The way the law is written, and I don't have the statute in front of me, is there's currently two sections of the statute that apply in different circumstances. When you're comparing apples to apples, it's reduced from 800 to 240 persons. I'm trying to find here.
I think the confusion comes is like what Sean is saying, there's sections in there, again, because it was actually amended from 800 to 400 for the peninsula players back in 2000, but there's two sections. There's section 29P and then there's also the 29M. So again, if you're looking at the Legislative Bureau reference, they're referring to the one section where it's going to be edited from the 400 to 240. So, I mean, we can clarify that just to make sure we're making the right reference to the right subparagraph. Again, that's from what we were looking at was the legislation on the 29M. And again, when you get the reference bureau reference, they're using the 400. So I guess what we'll do is we will make that correction if necessary, Roy.
Thank you.
Make sure we're referring to the correct section for our resolution.
Now, I have one other comment. This 240 is the capacity of the Northern Sky Theater. So this can come back again to other counties that somebody's going to want, well, we want it for 100 capacity theater. So this can be a snowball that can keep on coming. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Schommel.
I just wanted to clarify too, in the packet, I didn't see a letter from the town of Gibraltar, but the newspaper article references that the town of Gibraltar did support this 3-2, which it did. So I just want to clarify that for anybody who is wondering. There, in my opinion, I would have asked the town of Gibraltar to submit a letter to the packet. I'm not sure why they didn't, but so you know, I'm on the town of Gibraltar and it was voted to pass 3-2. And I definitely support it. And there seems to be some different language in here too about indoor and outdoor theaters, and then making this indoor or outdoor, which I would support as well, which is in the legislation on page 47. Again, I won't take too much time, but having, this kind of facility in a community brings so much value to the community for educational purposes, for economic purposes, as we've seen even in the surveys that were done about the economic value of having performing arts and arts organizations in our community. There's many studies and surveys that have been done even recently showing the economic benefit of that, let alone the educational and cultural benefit. Fits in well with our health plan for less isolation and having involvement in the community. It's an organization that's very involved in the local community as well as promoting economic tourism and things to do in the county that are positive. So there's also, as we mentioned, another organization in the same township that the taxpayers are already paying those taxes with Peninsula Players, that having had the exemption and support. So I highly support this and think we should pass it.
Supervisor Gauger.
Yeah, I don't think this is an issue of the merits of the Northern Sky Theater. I love it. I've been going since the 70s. I think it's a question of, I guess, a couple questions. How might this be abused as this goes forth if we throughout the state? I mean, could you open a little theater and say it's a theater, have a couple performances, and get your property taxes waived? I heard from both sides, contacted me, people who were concerned about in the Towns Association too. I'm gonna check on what their stand on this is, but I guess I'm thinking of the snowball effect. And my other question would be, what about churches? We're looking at property taxes. What other entities, nonprofits do not pay property taxes? Churches, can you give us?
Churches do not, educational, yes.
Sometimes nonprofit organizations, I believe the Lions Club on certain.
Yeah, there are
Their
some of
Lions
those
Camp
as well that are not on a tax roll.
Boy Scouts.
Yeah, Girl Scouts, those type of.
So they're listed in the statutes.
Yeah.
Is there a number of performance? I mean, capacity is one thing. How about what if they just put on 1 or 2 shows a year? That would be another abuse. I'm just trying to see who this would hurt. I mean, it sounds great and we love our theater and it does wonderful things, but who might this hurt on, and especially looking at other instances that if we support this on a state level. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Dunlickson, you had a question.
Yeah, I kind of echo what Mrs. Gauger is saying is that we've been asked to support the theater in Door County to do this, but what Representative Kitchens is doing at the state level is a whole different can of worms in reality for this. They'll make it statewide going forward, is my understanding. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No.
But so in terms of what they're saying is, yeah, what are the long-term ramifications and snowball effect that something that we supported here, which I support it locally. I've been struggling with this myself, but I do support it and I get it. But what, by us endorsing something, what is the state now going to do to, like they're saying, is how many other tens or hundreds of organizations or facilities around the state, or even in Door County for that matter, now going to come and want this? And then on the bigger picture, there will be a grand, a ramification on a tax burden when you start going over and over and over with it. So the long-term effect has the potential to be big. I don't know. I think, but it's two separate issues right now. It's us and what the state is willing to do. So yeah, there's a lot of thought into this that needs to happen. And honestly, my opinion is until you know what the state is doing, it's hard for us to make a decision at this point.
Well, it's a decision. The county can't grant the exemption. That's a state issue.
Correct.
That's correct. And what this resolution is really do is our legislatures have asked, is there county support for this before we bring it to the legislature? We don't know if it's going to pass the legislature. I do know that this bill was drafted, included language trying to minimize unintended consequences. Is who's going to benefit from this. If you look at the actual letter, there's a requirement that the IRS sent a determination letter of 501c3 status no later than October 1st, 1990. So it's not something that somebody could just put up a new non-for-profit theater and have property tax exemption. It was mindfully drafted to try to limit the impact it has. Now, could our legislature amend this in the future based on another county's request? Absolutely. Then that's their prerogative. We have nothing to say about that. But what I can say is there was intent in drafting this to not have it have broad or unintended consequences, that it would be as limited to Northern Sky Theater as possible.
Okay, Supervisor Boltman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Corp Counsel Sean just answered one of my questions, but, or clarified, but, and I looked up Wisconsin State Legislature, when you look up the number, it does seem to indicate at 29M, it talks about indoor at 800, and at 29P, the very next line, it's outdoor at 400. So I don't know if the wording needs to be changed. I don't think so, but, it's not, there's no confusion. It's just, it's indoor versus outdoor. That's all.
Right. There's also a requirement in the old section where you had to have a historic building. So they're restructuring the whole statute when they do this. So that's probably the confusion between the 400, the 800, the 240 there's different sections that are kind of being merged into one section now.
I think it'd be fair to assume that Representative Kitchens did the research on this and is presenting it in a fashion that it needs to be done in.
Yes, I looking at this, I mean, I don't think that they would do this without looking into it. That the Legislative Reference Bureau reviews these and make sure that they match with the rest of the statutes, that there aren't unintended consequences.
Okay. Supervisor Morgan hasn't spoken yet. I would go to her first, please.
I thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to echo my fellow supervisors who are in support of this. I think we need to do everything we can to support the arts in Door County. I'd be happy to pay the quarter a year, whatever it is for tax, for the tax roll. And also, when it comes to the state should be funding the arts as well. Wisconsin is dead last in this country for funding of the arts, which is so sad. So I think we should do everything we can to help the arts in Door County. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Sean.
Yep, I would shadow that in saying that we heard how the organization has done things for the state in partnership with the state park and has given funds in that way, which shows a community-minded support. Also, people I think have some fear or confusion about what nonprofits do. Nonprofits do not make a profit, hence the name. They have a mission that is geared towards the community and what their mission is, and that's where their funding goes entirely to. So I think the worry of it snowballing or having impacts in other areas has a safeguard on it by this is for nonprofit theaters, which is the key to this and is a theater has a choice to be for profit or nonprofit, and in making the nonprofit choice, they're investing in the community and their mission is based on that and giving back to the community and not having a profit. We should also be careful about worrying about the size. A size theater, it's sized for Door County. And so that size and being sustainable year round is important. And so we should support a smaller sized venue having this exemption. So I, again, highly support it.
Okay. Supervisor Enigal.
I will try to be concise. My comments are not in reference to the entity. I treat this no different than I treat RPC activities, which is the general impact of what the request is. For me, our resolution does not match the supporting documentation. Supervisor Boltman happened to bring up located himself and find an understanding for himself on it, but again, we're given a resolution that does not have documents to support the numbers that are represented in the resolution. At the very least, it should be pushed back one more month with the correct documents, because I'm looking at this, the state write-up, the intent, the typical document that's written before they go through with resolutions and saying our resolution does not match its intent. We already have a lot of not-for-profit entities out here in this county, in this state, in this country. There are lots of exemptions out there. One of them is education. Another one is we have, and I'm not picking on this entity, it's only because of the name I recognized, the Land Trust, that every time they occupy and purchase a piece of property, that property goes off the tax rolls. That's an option. Now, if this entity is an educational one, why aren't they going after the educational exemption? It does exist. My understanding is Birch Creek in the town of Egg Harbor is exempt from taxes for the educational aspect. It's an arts-orientated thing, you know, the generalized art statement, not specifically a theater, but I listen to it almost every night, every Saturday and Sunday for sure at my house because it's not that far away. The DC Auditorium, remember, that's attached to a school. That was exempt due to the school's status, as I understand it, back when that building was built. One of the reasons it was not built across the street. Peninsula Players, very old. Northern Skies, very old. I feel that when I read even just the cover letter, the intent of the statute was to be very narrow with scope. Don't know exactly why. My understanding is Gary Bice helped to do the original, in part for Peninsula Players. I'm not sure that I would consider them equal in the sense that I believe they have over 400 seats. And I'm guessing that if they want a 240-person seat here, that Night Sky does not meet that requirement. It's also back from 1969 from the original. When they built this current building, they would have been aware of these things. They could have built the building to match one of the existing requirements, and we wouldn't be sitting here today. They did not, apparently. There's a gifting of property to the state. I think it's being misrepresented, but I'm not going to get too far into that. And the last item, using my years of dealing with zoning, this request, we are always warned not to do this. This request looks, acts, and feels equivalent to spot zoning. Somebody's trying to get a state level regulation created based on a single entity that, even as written, I see the potential for, I can picture places in Door County easily hitting this exact same thing if they have the ability to prove the 1990 date. We have, what is it, over 700 not-for-profits based out of Door County. If they already have a proof of not-for-profit prior to that date, they could create a theater and fit underneath the same set of rules. And I'm not overly enthusiastic of spot regulations. This doesn't make sense to me. They had the opportunity to build a building that would have met the current rules. And I don't see that that's, nobody can explain to me where that is different.
Okay, John? Yeah, please.
I'm sorry, I was able to.
Turn the link.
I was able to pull up the statutes and I can clarify some of the questions. So under current law, there are two different statutory sections, one applying to nonprofit theaters and the other applying to nonprofit outdoor theaters. We are not discussing an outdoor theater now. Although Northern Sky does have an outdoor theater, it is located in Peninsula State Park, state property, not subject to property tax. We are referring to their indoor theater, which is on private property. Under current law, an indoor theater, in addition to having a historic building, has to have a capacity of not less than 800 persons. The reference to 400 persons is limited to outdoor theaters, which again is not an issue. The 800 capacity indoor theater section of the statute is not going away. That will remain in the statute under this bill. What the legislature or what the legislatures are trying to do is to remove the exemption for the outdoor theaters and create a more general exception for indoor or outdoor, reducing that capacity to the 240 persons. So that's some of the confusion with regard to the numbers.
Which actually makes it even more lenient on entities being able to.
But as I indicated before, and I'm not in favor or against this, this bill was, my belief is that this bill was drafted to be specific in who it would apply to and not be generally applicable. Could there be other entities that could apply under it? Absolutely. But it was drafted so that it would apply to the request by Northern Sky to our legislature to include them in the property tax exemption. So the way the ordinance is written, it's written clearly comparing indoor theaters to indoor theaters, not indoor theaters to outdoor theaters, which aren't applicable here.
Does anybody know the Third Avenue Playhouse's seating capacity? I think it's closest.
120. 120.
Total or each?
But they lease, but they don't know the.
No, it doesn't really matter. Still a historic building.
Okay, is there anyone else that hasn't commented yet that would like to make a comment? Otherwise, Vinnie?
Thank you. I respect what you are saying. However, I don't think it's a fair comparable to say that an organization should have built a building 3 or 4 times the size. That's assuming that the community or capacity could be filled, the business model could work with that. And that's a big presumption to ask or to assume they would have just done that, especially for an indoor theater. The capital investment in that is astronomically bigger for that many more seats. So I think that is why this is addressing that. And I think that it fits the community perfectly.
Okay, anyone else wishing to make a comment? Okay, we will go to the voter board because of all the various opinions. It'd be the easiest way to determine the outcome of this. I'm sorry. Okay, we're holding for Roy right now.
Nay.
Okay, it's passed by majority vote, 12 yes and 5 no, with 4 absent. Okay, thank you for the discussion. We realize that the actual determination of this will be done by the assembly or those representing us in Madison. Okay, we have nothing under ordinances. We've already done the special reports. Nothing for new business, oral committee reports. Jeff, I'm kind of put you on the spot there. At finance, could you make a little reference, or maybe Steve would, about the new forms that we're looking at for the CIP and our budget? Maybe Steve could do that. Yeah.
Do better.
It's gonna stay at the community level.
Yeah, it's staying at the committee level, but it is a change and hopefully beneficial to everyone in the.
So what we're doing is we're revamping our capital improvement plan. This will be distributed probably towards the end of March. The form that is requesting on the that the departments request for their capital projects. And what we've changed on the form is that we've added that if this project does take place, is there a potential that this could add staff? And if it does, how many are we going to need, or how many is going to be needed after this project is done? One of the things is that they're not going to know right away, because it's maybe once the project is completed, they might say, oh, I won't need any, but maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, there's a potential. So we've added that to the form. And also then what would that cost be for employees, depending if you have 2 or 1. The other thing that we've added to the form is by having this project is what is the additional operational cost on an annual basis. So such as utilities, is there any annual maintenance? If you have a software, what is that increase is going to be? So we're trying to get more information to present to the committee, to the finance committee, and also to the county board as to make a decision whether to have this project go forward or to be denied and be part of the budget, or if it goes forward to be part of the budget. That is the form. The other, we've modified our summary report of the total expenditures and the funding coming for these projects. If you look at your KIP packet, there'll be what I'm referencing is tables 6 through 8. And we're modifying that to be a 1-page document summary so you can see everything up front, the total cost, and also where the funding's coming from. The last piece is that we're also developing a scoring for each of these projects. Right now, we're going to tailor it to, for the finance committee right now we're gonna try it. To see how that goes, and then, if that works out, then if it's up to the finance committee, we will bring it to the full county board to do a scoring. We have like about 5 different sections on the scoring with a number, that's associated to that particular topic. And then we can make a determination, or the board can make a determination based on the score, whether to proceed with this project or not. So
Okay.
that is the update with our capital improvement.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Yeah, I've asked for this, I guess. Sometimes I receive comments from fellow supervisors that aren't necessarily aware of what's taking place at the oversight committees, and they are doing a significant amount of work. And I guess I'd like to see the public know there's other things, a lot of things going on, a lot of input to the resolutions that come forward. So, thank you. Supervisor Bolton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just would like to encourage my fellow supervisors to attend legislative days. There were 4 of us down there. I do remember not that many years ago when we would have 12 or 14, or I think one year, didn't we even have like 15 people? I hope this isn't a result of the fact that we've gone to salary and we kind of are resting on our laurels and saying, well, I don't want to do that because it, takes time. And yeah, it does take time. It's an investment. It's a personal investment. But I think it's incredibly valuable. And just sitting and listening to the Wisconsin Counties Association representatives go down the list of things that collectively the 72 counties in Wisconsin have been working on and moving forward to advance to the governor and to the legislature, it just gives a great perspective and helps a great understanding on. I mean, we dealt with a couple of those issues today. And it's a good event, and I encourage people to not just let it slip by, and I encourage people to go and participate.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Anyone else on any committee minutes? Okay. The review of committee minutes, the vouchers, claims and bills, any questions there? Okay, under the announcements, Ken, would you give us some update on the?
Yes, I have just a couple of announcements, if you don't mind. First one, if you'll notice, we're working on a blood drive, and I've been told that there's some openings. So if you feel so generous to donate some blood, it's always going for a good cause, obviously. So you can stop by and see if there's any open slots. Next one, for those that are signed up, but just a reminder, we're doing our Door Kewanee Legislative Days. That's going to be on March 19th and 20th. That's a Wednesday and a Thursday. Most of the committee assignments are already made now. Will have been sent out. We're putting together the teams. So we're kind of pleased with the progress with that. And thanks to DCEDC with all their work and cooperation with us, and also the work being done by Kewanee County to put this event on. The last item is just maybe to look at your calendars and block out sometime, if you recall, in April. With the elections, we actually have our county board meeting on the 15th. So that entire month is going to be compressed, both far as our committee meetings, but also county board. So again, for county board, the meeting is on April 15th. But I would like you to block out both the 22nd and the 29th for our retreat. Again, it'll be a similar format. There'll be a Tuesday. I haven't finalized the date yet, mainly because I need to get the facility set aside. So I guess I'll finalize that date with you. But if you could please mark off both those dates, probably from 8 until 2 o'clock again. We'll have a similar format. But again, we had talked about doing a budget retreat in preparation for 2026, and that's what we're hoping to do on one of those 2 days. And again, I'll finalize that as soon as possible. But please just kind of mark your calendars for that early enough. So those are my announcements.
Okay. Thank you. Sean, you have anything? No? Nothing. Okay, very good. 29th.
Still signed up for the legislative days, not on the board, but in the community or students in schools, or is that closed?
Or you can still, I believe the registration's still open. I think the room block is going to close tomorrow. But if you're so interested in signing up, if we can get those to sign up as soon as possible, we'll be making the actual team assignments over the next week.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Okay, the next county board meeting would be Tuesday, March 25th at 10 a.m. Could we have a motion to adjourn, or, okay, Joel? Okay.
What do we want, 9 or 10?
Traditional is 9 AM and that's what we'll stick to.
9?
Yes.
So we're gonna do it 9?
9. Yeah. Okay. Could we have a motion to adjourn, please? There is a motion by Shaw, a second by Combs. All in favor of adjourning signify by aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.